Now let's get more perspective on the U.S. situation as international relations expert and political analyst. Biodun Showumi joins us now. You're welcome, Biodun.
To be here.
Well, needless to say, we're all stunned by the occurrences of last night. What sort of issues does this event throw up for you? Let's start there.
Yeah, it actually is very interesting because when you actually look at what happened last night, it's exactly what the U.S. has been celebrating all over the world. If you look at what happened in Serbia, the same thing happened in Serbia in year 2000, and we have America celebrating it. They describe it as color revolution. We have the same thing happening in Ukraine in 2004 twice. Again in 2014, again celebrated by America as people's power, and it was also called color revolution. And by 2004, Guardian already came out with a piece describing it as engineering democracy through ballots and civil disobedience. And that's exactly what America is beginning to witness. In 2011, again, America was celebrating, the issue of the public protest and storming of the parliament in Tunisia, which led to what we call the Arab Spring. We then have so many people, so many countries affected. Libya and Syria ended up in wars which are still ongoing. So when you look at what America is preaching outside America, why is it that when it happens within America, what they call color revolutions, what they call spontaneous democracy, which those are the words of the State Department in US, why is it wrong inside America itself that when people who disagree, rightly or wrongly, who believe their elections were rigged, could not protest, could not storm Congress? I'm not advocating for it. I'm only looking at it from the role America played in so many countries. Look at what happened in Moldova, Georgia, so many countries. Exactly the same situation has repeated itself. It shows the contradiction within the American diplomatic approach, to the issue of democracy. Is bringing home the reality to the American people. So the fact of the matter is, if you say people have a right to protest, it's spontaneous democracy, why is it wrong in Washington? Why do we think Capitol Hill, should be more respected, should be more sacred than the parliaments of other countries all over the world? So these are very basic issues as far as I see it.
Showumi, good to see you. Let me quote Trump, and then he react to this quote. Even though I totally disagree with the outcome of the election, this is Trump speaking, and the facts bear me out. Nevertheless, there will be an orderly transition on January 20th. He went on to say, I have always said we would continue our fight to ensure that only legal votes were counted. Do you think that something could be amiss with Trump's psyche, the way he's talking?
Yes, what obviously is going on is what some people have described as a coup. In America, it may not be seen, it may not be viewed that way. You only need to go back to 1803, what happened in 1803, then 1876 between Samuel Tilden and Rutherford Hayes in that election, and how the Republicans were able to overturn the results of the election. It's exactly the same approach which is being employed, particularly if you take account of Ted Cruz's position that Congress should form an electoral commission to deal with it. It's exactly they're trying to reenact the incidents of 1876, in United States, which overturned the popular election of Samuel Tilden and then brought in Rutherford Hayes. So Trump is walking along that line, including with his supporters. And I'm not surprised. The majority of the backing is also coming from the same South, which was right at the center of the 1876 dispute. The difference in this case is that, contrary to the 1876 one, there were no disputed elections because all the relevant authorities certified that Biden won the election. So there is nothing the Electoral Commission, the Congress would do to set up an Electoral Commission to look into. Secondly, Trump himself has gone to one court after the other getting them to look at his own evidence. So far, so good. The courts have said, well, Trump, you don't have a case. They've been throwing out all the cases. So there's no way an electoral commission will be set up, to look into those issues again. It's like looking at unsubstantiated evidence. So therefore, whatever Trump and his co-travelers are doing currently is not going to watch, because the situation is quite different from the 1876 situation in America. But it's a script which is being acted along the same line, precisely.
Okay, thank you for that point. At this point, let's bring in political analyst Achike Chude to join the conversation. Welcome, Mr. Chude. And I wonder if you were listening to the conversation that preceded this. I just want to throw what Mr. Showmi just said. He was saying essentially that the chickens have come home to roost. So where the American democracy or the American elite seem to be applauding some of the uprisings in, say, Arab Spring and calling it a color revolution, why are they then now balking at the same thing happening on their shores? Would you agree with that reasoning?
I was just telling myself that after this show, I was going to call Ebiodu Showmi to congratulate him at least for commending him to commend it. I couldn't. The reality is that America and the West has always wanted to build a democracy and export a democracy that is fashioned after their own, ideological orientation. And so it is very clear, there's no doubt about that what they have seen, what they have supported in other parts of the world, because it pleased them, because, it also pleased their own ideological, standard at that particular point in time, will not be allowed even in their own territory, within their own territory. And I think that that is a point that has been brilliantly well made. May I just
introduce the thought that perhaps where you find that maybe other constitutions have not allowed the democratic process to play out, there may be a case for saying that maybe a forced or a color revolution were necessary. But as opposed to in America, where Mr. Showmi also pointed out that the processes were being gone through and there seemed to be no reason for this insurrection.
Yeah, but the question now, I understand the fact that you need to play some level of devil's advocacy, but the reality is that who determines what the constitution of a country, should be? Who determines a country should be? These are the questions that need to be asked, because a particular people, whether it's in Ukraine and Serbia and some of these other places where these things have happened, there is a constitution. So is it that the Americans and the Europeans, have taken it upon themselves to interpret the constitutions of those countries and determine whether the people themselves are wrong or the political elites themselves are wrong? So these are some of the contradictions. But beyond it is the fact that, what has happened, is something that is very, very unsavory. It is, I want to ask yourself, the impression we had before now is that President Donald Trump has political ambition even after he leaves office, and that there's always the possibility that he could run in 2020. I think he has done himself incalculable, damage by what has happened, because there's no way you can remove him from the activities that happened yesterday, and that is why a lot of his allies are abandoning him. But then the issue again, just like you used the word, the chicken has come home to roost. What is playing out today is not what is a script that the Democrats have also played in the last 4 years of the Trump presidency. And I will give you, reasons. Do not forget that after the process had been concluded, the reality is that this process had not been concluded. Hopefully, with what the Congress has done yesterday, certifying the election, results, the process will be concluded by the time the president, Donald Trump, hands over to Biden on the 20th of January. But even after the process had concluded in the United States, in 2016, there were many people who refused to accept the Trump presidency, thereby undermining, at least from the basis of what they said, the institutions that produced Trump as president of the United States. It was Hillary Clinton who was the loser in that particular election, who said that Trump was an illegitimate president. And there are so many Democrats that were also making that statement, calling Trump an illegitimate president. Some, Clinton put some of them in a basket of deplorables, while some said that those who are supporting Trump are morons. But it is that same process that people are now accusing Trump of desecrating that threw up Trump as the president of the United States.
Let's bring in Showmi, but this is totally a different thing altogether. This is coming from the president of the nation. What former foreign minister, Nigeria foreign minister, Bolaji Akinyemi, even called treason. He said what Trump has done is treason. So it's totally a different picture. But show me, Achike there said Trump has done an incalculable damage to himself. But let's talk about the American democracy. How much of a damage do you think Trump has done to American democracy?
Yeah, I think what is going on currently is not new in America. At least they've gone through it 3 times, according to records. 1803, when they had to set up an electoral commission, then also in 1876, and now we are seeing the same thing repeating itself. And they always follow allegations of rigging in America. One, it shows America's democracy as it is known today is not different from democracies in other parts of the world, because they're all rife with allegations of riggings, one way or the other. So maybe the world is getting to a stage where political scientists need to begin to look at what else needs to be tinkered with in the democracy as we know it today, or maybe they need to come out with another system. But in relation to the United States, the issues is not just about United States. United States has presented itself to the whole world as a beacon of democracy, as a mirror of democracy. So many countries, including Europe, were all looking at America. They have tried to redefine the values of the world, the political values of the world, and social values of the world using the American, spectrum. And Europe has brought along with it. You can see how the European leaders, one after the other, are rushing to quickly, call for caution in the case of what is going on in the United States, because they are beginning to lose the moral legitimacy to preach the concepts, the interpretations, and their own understanding of democracy to other parts of the world, given what is going on in United States. Secondly, it has always been used, the term democracy and their own understanding of it has always been used as an instrument of foreign policy to meddle in the internal affairs of other countries. With what is going on in the United States, they now see that being undermined again. How, if you have President Jonathan now preaching the values of democracy, to Donald Trump.
Sorry, we're going to keep you on pause. We're coming back. You will probably continue with your thought when we get back. You're watching, still watching News. We'll be back in a bit. Stay with us. We'll go back to Achike Chude, political analyst, and Biodo Shawami on what has been playing out in American politics. Now, Achike, let me come to you. When politicians here in Nigeria and civil society organizations begin to always want to call America, to come and intervene in our politics here in Nigeria, with what is playing out now, what kind of message is this sending out to them?
Yeah, well, the fact that America has become the butt of jokes, around the circles you mentioned, is an indication that what is going on is a major disappointment, in the whole world. And the fact that a lot of people are beginning to weigh in. Of course, our past president, I saw individuals there, when he made the statement he made before he handed over in the election that he lost in Nigeria, that the blood of one single Nigerian is not worth anybody's ambition, not to talk of his own ambition. And that is the admonition he made to the American president. And so, like I said, it has become the butt of jokes. Sometimes you attend the meetings of CSO, civil society organizations, and the issue of maybe election comes up. And you know that some of the activities of the CSOs are being funded by some American, democratic institutions. And you hear these jokes that America is not in a position right now to preach morals when it comes to politics to other parts of the world. And it is a contradiction, really, what we're seeing. And it makes it very difficult for America to stand in admonition, really, of other countries. What are they going to tell countries that conduct elections and that the elections are not properly well run? What kind of lessons, what kind of admonitions are they, what kind of sanctions are they going to impose on those other countries when, at your backyard, you have not been able to get it right, at the same time? So this is a dilemma that a lot of the people are facing. But again, the whole of that sanctimoniousness of the American democracy has been demystified by the 4 years of Donald Trump presidency as a result of the self-imposed contradictions that we have seen within his administration. And beyond that also, do not forget that it was, in a very solemn occasion, the State of the Union address, that the Speaker of the House stole the speech of the American president. And I have never seen that kind of display by any politician in any part of the world, no matter the level of angst that you might have. So all of these things, were the cracks that we are now beginning to see manifest yesterday, at the Congress. So it's not a nice thing, it's not a palatable thing to say, but it makes it difficult, like I've said, for America to wave the moral flag over other nations that are not getting it right. There's always that tendency for people to retort that you need to put your house in order before, as they say, charity begins at home. And so America needs to learn new levels of charity when it comes to democracy before it begins to impose certain democratic values to other nations in the world. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chude. Mr. Shoumi, are we not in danger of throwing the baby out with the bathwater? Is there not any benefit we can refer to over the years of America playing the role of big brother, by contrast to more oppressive regimes? And to that end, what will it take for America to resume or restore its role of global umpire?
Yeah, in the first instance, I don't think, as it is today, democracy seems to be the most widely accepted form of political organization as it stands today. So therefore, the question of throwing it out of the way, throwing the baby out with the bathwater is out of it. It only shows that democracy itself is not perfect, the way we've been presenting it as if it's a solution to our problems of inclusion. Because what you find is when people dispute a result, it's really because they feel rigged out, or they think they will not be they will not feel included in the government. They won't see themselves as stakeholders in that government. So basically, what it simply means is that you have a wide, huge population in America today who feels that they will not be represented, or their views will not be represented by the Biden administration. And which runs contrary to what democracy is all about. That is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. So some of those assumptions are now being challenged, by the events going on in America. Now, in relation to America's role itself in the world, yes, a major damage has been caused to the United States in terms of how it conducts its foreign policy. Most people know that it's either war against terrorism or promotion of democracy. Those are the two issues being raised as pretext to meddle in the internal affairs of other countries. Most recently, if you remember the case of Bolivia, Venezuela, where Guaido is being, actively encouraged by the American government, in contrary to the results of that election. So when you look at all those issues, already the America's position is now going to get weakened in a way that it will be more difficult, to push the issue of democracy, as a basis, to remove foreign governments in what they call color revolution. That will be a big blow, and that is going to be the situation currently. In terms of America's leadership of the world, that also is already being questioned. If you remembered in the economic field, we have China, Russia taking on America already in terms of the leadership of the world. Now, democracy is the only thing that they hold on to as a commanding height, that they hold on to continue to impress the world with. But that, again, is not being undermined. So I can see the role of America as the policeman of the world being weakened further by what has happened in United States of America today. What you are likely going to see is that Russia and China will likely up their games with a view to fill the vacuum that will be created. So that may eventually lead to what many people will prefer, which is a multilateral, world, where it is not only one country, but there are different countries coming together, to agree on the way the world should go. Currently, we have just a unilateral approach, to global organization, which is being led by America. So we are likely going to see that being challenged. I cannot see America coming back stronger or as strong as it is before Donald Trump.
All right, thank you, Piotr. Achike, to you. Why does all this leave the Republican Party?
Sorry, again?
Why does all this leave the Republican Party? I mean, I was watching. Let me just add this. I was watching the whole proceedings, and when I saw Mitch McConnell, the majority leader, who is now going to switch places with Chuck Schumer, stand up and begin to speak strongly for the Constitution of America and against what Donald Trump stands for, I was taken aback, really. So why does all this leave the Republican Party?
Yeah, I think if you have studied Mitch McConnell and some of the stakeholders, the politicians, especially within the Republican Party, then I think one can naturally conclude that when it comes to the crunch, you'll be counted upon to do the right thing. You're counted upon to play the role of statesman. Do not forget that these people are career politicians, and they have built their careers, around politics and around ingratiating themselves at least to their people, their own constituencies. They have built constituencies over the years, and so it is not just Mitch McConnell. One of the staunchest backers of the president, Senator Ron Paul, and Senator Lindsey Graham also drew a line on what they feel are the do's and don'ts in their own democracy. And so, if there's one thing Trump has done, do not forget that the emergence of Trump was something that took everybody by surprise. In fact, by the time he announced his intention to run for the presidency of the United States, he was giving people laughed at him within the party and gave him a 1% chance. That 1% eventually became 100% when he became America's president. But the reality is that there are so many negatives, apart from the things he has done, because when you look at his acts while in office, there are certain things he made promises to the American people was going to do. And from day one, he stopped to those things. And when you are talking about immigration issues, you are talking about appointment of conservative judges and all of that. These are promises that he made to the American people. And he stayed true to those promises. But beyond that is the fact that I think he had a major hubris. A major failing, and that failing was of a personal, character. So I'm going in there.
We don't have all the time. We will leave it there for now. Thank you so much, Achike there and Piotr Show Me.